Can you maybe, I think, move back a smidge?
Yeah, I don't like how I look.
That's separate from the podcast.
That's just separate. Yeah, that's just like my aesthetic thing. Yeah, it's been going on since middle school.
Now, that camera looks far from you,
Way
right?
too far. Call it Spider-Man because it's far, far from home.
Oh, do you see the new one yet?
No, I just saw the second one last month, so I'm way behind.
That's all wrong.
It looks really wrong. Yeah, now it's too much over.
Okay, we're good? You think this is what you look like?
Oh, God.
We have another iPad issue?
Yeah, it's at 1%.
Oh, I thought last time it wasn't here because you were charging it. What happened?
I don't know what happened. I unplugged it, and I guess it just drains.
That's what... Never mind.
Okay, great. It's dead.
Oh, okay. It's immediately dead.
Immediately dead. Great.
Do you want we can plug it in somewhere. You can have a cord situation.
Yeah, do you have a cord?
I have a cord that probably will do the trick.
That would be great, yeah.
What kind of, is it like
Nice.
the iPhone cord?
Yeah, it's USB-C, which is weird that they gave it like the timing. the United States and before Christ. That's really weird.
That one, the new one.
Yeah, right? The new one should be what it is, yeah.
A little bit of a cord in the background, but I think, like, who cares?
There's a cord in the foreground on our microphones.
That's good.
That's good. Last week it was your phone. This week it's a cord.
What happens if we put it on the other side of you? Is it going to be...
Not annoying at all.
Probably super annoying.
No, not annoying at all.
Not annoying at all?
Yeah, what does this look like?
Worse. The cord's
Way
still
worse,
there.
yeah. Well, yeah, the cord's still there. What if we
We have to wing it anyway.
put it
we
on
have
the
to...
ground for a minute and start the podcast and see what happens?
This podcast is brought to you in part by Dragon Shield. Use code PLAYTOWIN5 with the link down below for 5% off to help support the show.
Welcome to the Play to Win podcast, where we talk about winning in cEDH. I'm Cam.
And I'm Dylan. This week we're talking about a couple things. We have a couple of cards that we're going to highlight. We have a Patreon submitted question that I don't know what it is yet. It's a surprise.
Most things today are a surprise.
Going to be a surprise. I'm excited for it. What is first on the docket? The first thing is the iPad just died, so we're winging it until it turns back on.
So we're going to just start talking about the top 5 cards that we want to talk about today.
I love that idea.
And that's what we're going to do. And then we'll answer the Patreon question at the end of the episode.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the first card that you have on your mind?
I guess the first thing is it's kind of like a series of cards, but really only one of them kind of sees cEDH play. And this is because of a big change that just happened in the entirety of the Magic rules as of The Hobbit coming out. They've now changed how mana ability works.
Oh, right.
In
Yeah.
all of Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
So the way that it works now is that a mana ability has all of the previous requirements that it did before. You know, it's an ability that you use to generate mana, except now abilities that make cards go to or from your library as part of the effect are no longer considered mana abilities.
Okay, is that the only requirement change? Like, I know there's a card that's like Pristine Talisman that like gains life and makes a mana. That's still a mana ability?
That's still a mana ability because it's not fucking up anything with your library.
It's not moving anything. Specifically moving something from your library somewhere else, that's not a mana ability
Exactly,
now.
yeah. So Krark Clan Ironworks remains a mana ability, even though there's like a lot of weird busted stuff you can do with that. So Krark Clan Ironworks remains unaffected by this.
Interesting. Okay, if I have a little bit, I don't know if this is a hot take. I personally think if the mana ability does anything else, it shouldn't be a mana ability and you should be allowed to respond to it. If it does anything, if it sacrifices a creature, if it gains you a life, personally, I think that's not a mana ability anymore. That's a thing. You're doing a thing and you're like cheating it by like being allowed to do it whenever you want because it's a mana ability.
So we're a little bit closer.
But we're close. Yeah, I don't even know if that's a net positive because realistically, I love exploiting the rules in Magic the Gathering. And I think that it's cool that Krark and Ironworks can do that. I just think like whenever we're exploiting a rule, shouldn't we acknowledge like, maybe the rule should be different? But I don't know.
Which I guess that's kind of what they decided to do now, is that they realize that there's a couple things that just make the whole mana ability thing a little bit more confusing. There's a couple of 2-mana 1/1 creatures like Millikin and Deranged Assistant that tap to mill a card and add a mana to your mana pool. But now that's no longer a mana ability. So you tap and then people can respond to that effect before you actually generate mana. But the real reason why we're talking about this is because Selvala.
Heart of the green-white one.
No, I think Heart of the Wilds is the green one.
That's why I said Heart of the green-white one.
Explorer Returned?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Is that what it is? I don't know. It's she's some kind of explorer. But green-white Selvala no longer has a mana ability, and because she draws everyone a card as part of her tap ability, it's now just a regular activated ability that makes mana.
Right, yeah, it's the parlay one, the one that does the parlay shit. That is like almost good enough in cEDH, but like when you read it, you're like, you're drawing everyone cards, isn't that bad? But like if a silence effect is in play, who cares? Overall, my gut tells me that I don't really know how much this affects Selvala, because oftentimes by the time that Selvala is doing this shit, they have a silence effect in play, so like you can't respond anyway. But it does change a lot of the weirdo things that the deck is able to do because of that mana ability thing, so I'm sure it's bad for it.
Yeah, I think a big part of Selvala is being able to kind of like fuck up the game and put it into a draw when you need to, so that in the middle of the tournament, you can still get a point in a situation where you might have gotten 0 points to like help you get into top 16, because it's really good in these sloppy scenarios where you just give everyone an extra card, and that's like kind of a Heartwood storyteller in play for the table, where it's now way harder for the one Rogsai player to win if now Selvala is feeding Rog Thras and Kitten extra cards to help get it somewhere, even though it also fights with itself because now Selvala is not really able to do anything else to help because it itself can't really play a lot of free interaction outside of endurance, which we've already talked about how it's not really good against Rogsai.
And I would say realistically, truthfully, I gotta imagine like the scenario that you're describing doesn't necessarily come up a ton. It does where it makes the game difficult to win. It puts the game in a draw. But if the turbo deck, like Selvala is not going to be in play when the turbo deck is winning, and it's not going to be able to like give the table enough cards. But like the turbo deck is winning on turn 2. That means Selvala is ahead in seat order, also out on turn 2 and ready to tap.
That's it. Well, it has to rely on one of the other 2 decks to stop the turbo deck first, so that for their second attempt, now it's impossible for them to win.
Yeah,
so like
definitely.
They might have to save like an Orum's Chant or a Silence as like part of their mulliganing strategy to make sure they can like stop Ral really quickly early on so that they can untap and like have a Selvala. But even then, like Selvala still has to tap, and we've talked a lot about commanders that we don't like that have to tap before they do anything.
I want my commander to be live and active the moment that it touches the board. I want it to right away to do
something. Which is weird because I feel like the deck got a huge upgrade with Shang-Chi coming into the format, and now all of a sudden it kind of gets like this little downgrade by Selvalla's ability not being a mana ability. And now I think the big thing is you can now respond to Selvalla's tap with your own Orcish Bowmaster.
Yeah.
Then there's going to be 4 cards drawn. You're going to get 4 triggers, and before you didn't have a moment to flash in Bowmaster before people got those cards.
Right. All that to say, Selvala doesn't see a ton of play. So realistically, this isn't going to affect cEDH ton, but it is relevant news. And going forward in the future, when cards like this get printed, we have to remember that's not a mana ability. People can respond to that, and that it's a different thing now.
Yeah, exactly. Chromatic Star is saved, but its brother in kind, Chromatic Sphere, is now not a mana ability because the card draw is attached to the ability of sacrificing it to make a mana.
Whereas the Sphere, it's when the artifact, when the star goes to the graveyard, just when it goes to the graveyard. Really? The star? Yeah, the star is the one that I play.
That's why you play the star, is because if
Whenever
you beseech to mirror it, you know, and bargain
it,
you still get an extra card.
Yeah, I always just mix up star and sphere, but star is the good one. Sphere
very
is,
confusing,
they're basically the same, but now even more so, star is better.
Exactly, yeah. It's the shining star of the 2.
Right, yeah, okay. Fair enough, okay. We got that first bit out of the way.
Great. We bit off more than we can chew.
Good. All right. Good first chunk. What's the next card we're talking about today?
All right. Next card we're going to talk about is a card that you recommended us to talk about, which is Squirrel Girl.
This is a card that we missed in the Marvel set review. I don't think we talked about it.
I thought we did talk about it.
Did we talk about it?
Yeah.
Maybe we did. Maybe
no, we did because we thought that Squirrel Girl has a different ability than she actually does. Because I had to look this up.
Yeah.
She actually does have squirrel powers.
She does have squirrel. Okay.
She commands squirrels.
She does. Okay.
And just when she beats characters like Thanos, it's just a joke that she commanded enough squirrels to be able to take down Thanos.
So all right, good. I'm glad that she actually has squirrel powers.
But it's always off screen, so you never actually see how she does it. She shows up with Thanos tied up in a bunch of rope or something.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We talked about, I think, Squirrel Girl as like the potential for like a weirdo commander. I don't know that I referenced it. If I did, maybe not enough. How powerful it is inside of green decks, specifically Rograk Thrasios, specifically decks that have access to Shang-Chi now, because those are 2 together, and obviously specifically with Earthcraft?
With Earthcraft,
yeah. Because if you have the squirrel in play, that means the squirrel entered and a token was made when it enters. So that's 2 squirrels that you got. And then I think there's a second ability for 4 mana. You create a squirrel for each squirrel you have. Is that what it does?
Which means that you would automatically then make 2 squirrels so long as you haven't done anything else to make squirrels.
So that means that you've spent 8 mana to make 4 squirrels, which seems like a bad rate. But if you have Earthcraft in play, you can tap those 2 squirrels right away, plus the ones that enter, so you can kind of pay for half of it right away to make more squirrels and go infinite. it very quickly with just Earthcraft and Squirrel Girl / Squirrel Girl with any of the Enduring Vitalities, or what's the other rights one?
Prolith rights, as long as you have a Shang-Chi in play.
As long as you have the Shang-Chi in play, which, like, again, these decks always want those things in play. So we talked about this before, but like, yes, technically it is a lot of cards, but half of the cards are good on their own and you always want them in play. So you don't have to like actively compile them. Like, this is just the game plan and the mulliganing that you want anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So it has felt like it is really strong. The combo with Earthcraft, I think, is really what makes it very good, because that's just like 2 cards versus like also needing Shang-Chi right away.
Right, and Rockthrast is already playing 3-card combos with Obora Breezecaller and Gaia's Cradle and Talon Gates of Mandara, and this combo doesn't actually need Gaia's Cradle. Gaia's Cradle is helpful, of course, but like Gaia's Cradle isn't part of the combo. So like, it's just like a different route that you can go in with these like very creature mana heavy decks, and I think it's like, I don't know, a good route. Like, we've proven over and over again that Enduring Vitality is fucking cracked. It's just insane. Kinnan with that effect is very insane. Shang-Chi with that effect. Like, these trio of green things, I feel like cEDH is getting like a real new identity with green stuff being really fucking good, and I think the Squirrel Girl allows you to win the game pretty quickly, or even if you don't win the game, just like go way over the top in terms of mana very quickly. It's hard to interact with. It's all creatures.
That's the thing, and it's only 8 mana, which sounds like a lot of mana, but Thrasios Rograk is trying to make so much mana all the time that like 2 Thrasios activations is 8 mana, so it's super easy to just completely win the game easily.
Rockthrast is going to have enough mana on turn 3 almost every single game. That's what the deck does. It's going to have enough mana for a bunch of stuff on turn 1, Thrasios activation on turn 2, probably like a win attempt or just like an absurd amount of mana on turn 3. That's what the deck does. It's going to have 8 to 12 mana on turn 3. You're not keeping hands that don't do that all the time. There's caveats to everything in Magic, of course, but like when I play against Rockthrast, that's what's happening. They're activating Thrasios 2 to 3 times on turn 3 or doing other stuff, playing a bunch of shit, untapping their Gaia's Cradle a bunch, and I think like the Squirrel Girl shit, it fits right into that strategy. It gives you extra bodies for Gaia's Cradle, even if you don't have an Earthcraft, so you're still like winning the game.
Yeah, like no matter what, it's still just like helping facilitate your strategy even more. And again, if you don't have an Earthcraft, you can always just make your Gaia's Cradle better by just putting out more bodies in play.
And I like this way that green has the ability to like almost like fight through interaction if they do have a bounce spell per se. As long as you cast the Squirrel Girl with a bunch of mana afterwards, you can pseudo counter their bounce spell simply by activating again over top. You know what I mean? Like, they have a bounce spell. Okay, you like normally a blue deck would have a response to that, but instead your response is just spend 4 mana to do it again, and then now over top of your counter spell, I can keep going.
Which is kind of nice because it lets you like shave on some interaction in your deck then too. Like, you only need enough to stay alive in the early game, but then once you pass the early game and you're ready to win, you don't need more protection on top of that. You can just like use your interaction when you need it to stay alive and just keep putting wins on the stack over and over and over again.
Yeah, cards like Veil of Summer, although we both love Veil of Summer, and I'm a big fan of that card, and specifically in a tally that's different than these, like some like mana heavy decks. The need for things like Veil of Summer that are purely protective goes down when like the way that you protect your combo is just like trying again over top.
Yeah, whereas like Force of Negation is still a little bit better than that, because at least you can spend 3 mana on your turn if you're trying to win to Force of Negation's 3.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
It's about time that I corrected you on something instead of you having to correct me on something.
Oh, we were talking about green cards. I don't know why I thought you meant Force of Vigor, which obviously you said Force of Negation. That's what you meant.
Yeah, but like it still kind of works out as like a better interactive piece then, because it's better at protecting you against a Necropotence, and then it's also still castable on your turn if you do need it as interaction. But again, you could just like always put more wins on top of that.
Yeah, so Squirrel Girl, I think it's good. I don't know how we rated it initially. I think it's a little bit better than I originally thought. Only in the decks that it's good in, right? Like, that's obvious. But like,
yeah, which is probably just like Rockthrast. Like, is it going in Kinnan at all?
I don't know about Kinnan. I think other Thrasios-based Gaia's Cradle decks would consider it. Yoshimaru Thras, if you're playing Tevish Thras, shit like that.
But Earthcraft doesn't work in Kinnan because you tap a creature to untap a basic, and that doesn't double your Kinnan mana.
But Enduring Vitality and Shang-Chi does work in Kinnan, and then if you're doing that stuff, then it's good. So I'm not positive about Kinnan. Kinnan is a little bit less Gaia's Cradle focused too. The Gaia's Cradle focused helps this card go both ways, where it's like it's just a bunch of bodies for your Gaia's Cradle, and that's good. Or it's good because Earthcraft is like one of your main strategies. So I'm not positive about Kinnan, but I think it's a great spot in Rockthrast, and then and like I said, all the other Thrasios Thrasios decks. I think it's considerable in all those.
Would you play it in Thrasios Tymna?
I wouldn't play Thrasios Tymna.
I wouldn't.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you could. The issue is Earthcraft gets a little worse in 4-color decks, right? Whereas like Earthcraft is like the main draw to wanting to play Squirrel
You kind of
Girl.
have to be like shaving and making your mana base way worse so that you give up on the ability to play some of the double white spells that are really impactful, like Ranger Captain.
And
Theos.
you could, I'm sure that would be fine. There's so many things that you can do with Tymna Thrasios, which is why it's good. You could cut a color, fucking cut white, or just don't play white cards. And
that's also true.
You could play just 3 of them and then like lean into this, and then you want like card advantage, and like the white is for Tymna, and that's it. There's shit that you could do, I think. So like, could you play it? Sure. I don't know that that's where I'm like loving this card. When I'm talking about it being good, it's really good in Rock Thrash, and then it like can be fine in other places.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I did even think about it in Sisei because it is a legend, and I'm playing Enduring Vitality and Shang-Chi and like that.
You're
like,
a Gaia's Cradle deck.
You know what I mean? Doing all that, but I think that's a little bit too cute and too much.
I think
like,
you have to already want to be on Earthcraft, and there's very few decks that want to be on Earthcraft outside of Thrasios, like low-color Thrasios decks.
Yeah,
really.
I think the strength is that you're not only on Enduring Vitality or only on Earthcraft. You're on all of that effect.
You're on Cryptolith, right? You're on every single one of these.
You have maybe another way to enable haste or something. I don't know if that rat card is going to come back and be good. You know the rat card.
Pack Rat. Love Pack Rat.
Pack Rat. No, yeah, the one that red and X, your creatures gain haste and it makes X rats.
Song of Totentods.
Song of Totentods. That's a card that always felt like it should be really good in Rock Thrash. It was good in the beginning, and then people ended up cutting it, but maybe if you're doing more haste stuff, like with the Enduring Vitality, that would be good.
Don't they already have haste? Don't the rats come with haste?
I don't know if the rat... I know the card for sure. The card grants haste to all of your creatures. The rats might separately already have it, because I know you can just for a red give your creatures haste with the card.
Which is pretty great,
yeah, you don't have to make the rats or whatever.
Well, then, yeah, that would mean that the rats have haste, right? You make the rats, and then you give them haste.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, Squirrel Girl, better than we initially thought, maybe. Card's good.
While we're on the topic of Rogsai, this is one that we didn't talk about in the set review last week.
You said on the topic of Rogsai, did you mean Rogthrash or did you mean Rogsai?
I meant Rogthrash.
You meant Rogthrash. Okay, on the topic of Rogthrash.
On the topic of Rogthrash, there's a card that we did not talk about in the set review last week that I actually just saw in a Rogthrash deck.
In the Hobbit set, yeah. What are you looking at?
Now, we didn't talk about Radagast of Rogsgable, because it looks more like a casual card, and it reads more like a casual card, but there might be implications in Rogthrash for this. This is 2 and 2 green for a 2/5 legendary avatar wizard that just says the first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast and can be cast as though it had flash.
Cast this on turn 1, turn 2, 5 mana Tali.
That's pretty gross. That's pretty gross.
That's probably bad. But
that's probably bad.
That's funny, though.
That's funny, though. Yeah, if you get this out on turn 1, then you can cast Roger at instant speed then on someone else's turn, too.
Sure.
Which is also kind of funny. I don't know what that does,
Yeah.
but this seems just kind of nice as like a way to get your expensive things into play for cheap on other people's turns when it's still advantageous for you.
It doesn't have flash, right?
It doesn't have flash.
That kind of stinks. But
and being a 4-mana thing is also a little tough.
And being a 4-mana thing. But I do like the idea of more things that facilitate instant speed shit. I think that's a good spot to be.
I think so, too. I kind of like this with, like, Cloud of Fairies. I think that one's really interesting because even if you don't untap Cradle, like, you still get the discount on Fairies so that you're always netting mana no matter what. I like this with Spellseeker, especially if I need to be interactive. I can flash in a 1-mana Spellseeker to go get the interaction that I need and then do something with that. I don't like this as a 4-mana do nothing up front. I feel like I'd almost rather be on Squirrel Girl than this.
Yeah.
But I did see this in a deck that did really, really well in a tournament, and it made me think this might be something.
Yeah, it's tough with cEDH tournaments because we are 100 card singleton, and we always talk about, like, there's a chance this card never came up.
It didn't come up the whole
They
day.
didn't draw it at all, right?
It was put to the bottom in a 6-card hand.
If I think about this, what I'm afraid that it does is you have to cast it, everyone's a little bit afraid, and you pass a turn. And everyone sits in their fear while this sits out on the battlefield and doesn't do anything active right away, and potentially does nothing and just soaks up interaction. Whereas, like, cards like Squirrel Girl go into play, and you have the potential to win the game on the spot with them, or make mana or do stuff afterwards. But, like, this, people are going to be, like, nervous about you now, because, like, you can cast creatures at instant speed, so, like, they have to think extra about you, which, like, I don't know, is that good or bad? It could be a little bit of both. That's my fear with this card. It's like, it's going to attract attention when, like, no, I want this for turn 4. I'm playing it on turn 1 because I can right now. It's nothing now, but it's hard start to convince the table that,
It's
that
probably,
was my fear with this.
it might feel like Seedborn Muse in that way, then, where
Right,
like
yeah.
these decks ended up cutting Seedborn Muse because it was kind of like a win more. You ended up trying to win on your turn more frequently than needing to untap and go to someone else's turn. And this kind of like might end up feeling like that, where like I want to try to win on my turn. And I don't really want the opportunity to pass the turn and have to cast something else, even though it's a little bit cheaper. I still have to spend 4 mana on this to only get a 2 mana discount on something else.
I think one of the many strengths of the flash enablers, the good ones at least, is they have flash themselves. So you can choose the moment to strike fear and put them into play. You decide when it's right to cast the Born Upon and Win, or when it's right to cast the Valley Flood Caller, or the Fairy, whatever. I always forget what the Fairy's called. I want to say Fairy Mastermind.
High Fate Trickster.
High Fate Trickster.
But I do feel like that card just might be more attractive to me in like Rogthras still.
If you're playing blue, I would think that one's just better, right?
It's just better, yeah, because I can flash. I don't have to commit to this. I don't have to like immediately tell everyone how scary I am all the time, and I can pitch it to Force of Will and Commandeer.
Right, yeah. But the reduction is something. That 2 mana reduction.
The reduction is something.
But most of
yeah.
your creatures that you're playing, most of them are already 1 and 2 mana, right?
They'll
Like,
get a 1 mana discount a lot of the time.
getting a 1 mana Valley Flood Caller would be good, I guess.
That's probably
But,
good, but now
I
like
don't
that
know,
almost
right.
defeats the purpose
Yeah.
of having Radagast now.
2
So
mana
like,
Sowing, Michael Spawn, that's always good. You know what I mean? Like that.
so in my I think if your deck is like, if you start to like pack it full of like Nezahal and like
Sure.
other kind of weird shit like
Yeah.
that, you can certainly end up getting a lot more value out of that cost reduction. But again, it only does it for the first creature that you do every time.
Yeah.
So it's mostly, I feel like, going to be used to go, here's Springheart Nantuko out now where I can get like an extra little bit of value because I still have a fetch land or something. Like it's going to be, I think, little smaller pieces of advantage that you're throwing out instead of like big fucking consecrated sphinxes or something like that.
I could see it in Kinnan, honestly. Most Kinnan lists that I see are still playing Seedborn Muse. Most of them are still playing a couple of big hitters, like maybe a Nezahal or a Consecrated Sphinx or something like that. I could see it in a deck like that that's actively creating mana on other people's turns too, right?
That's true, yeah, especially like if you're already playing Seedborn Muse, and now like if you get a lot of these big creatures stuck in your hand, it's way easier for like clones to be 2 mana if you're running Clever Impersonators and stuff like that, which I guess Rogthras is too, so like that does kind of help. At the same time, like that's still 6 mana now in order to do that, and it had to be green, green, blue, blue, and 2 generic.
There is something to say about doing things that are inherently extremely powerful, but don't necessarily win the game. If you're a good talker, you can convince a player, hey, I know this is powerful. I'm not going to activate it right now. I won't use it right now. Let's keep our interaction for Rogsai. We'll make a deal. I won't do the scary thing for a little while.
I won't use it this whole turn cycle.
Right, and then you use your interaction on Rogsai, and I go, great, now you don't have that interaction for me, and our deal was for this X amount of time, and now I'm unlocked again, or whatever. Like, there are deals that you can make, and I do think that's good part of political, but again, like, sometimes you're gonna run into a little chaos engine, and the chaos person's gonna be like, fuck you, no, I'm killing that thing, and that'll suck.
Yeah,
But
I think it does really help Rogthras's nudge factor. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, instead of Squirrel Girl that
not
can just like
winning.
win the game, yeah,
Yeah.
right, it's not winning, but like, there's gonna be a lot more times where you're gonna look at this in your opening hand, you're gonna reveal it off the top with a Thrasios activation, and you're gonna go, this is not helpful to me right
Yeah.
now. Like, I'm trying to put a win together. I need to find something that is gonna go with my Earthcraft that I have in play, but this does not help me in the moment right now.
Right, yeah. For digging decks like Thrasios, yeah, you're right. It does stink a little bit more because you don't want any of your cards to necessarily be bad. Like, one of the joys of Rogthras is oftentimes when you're digging, a lot of your flips, especially if you're instant speed, is like more mana. You know what I mean?
I can keep going.
Where you flip into a creature tutor and you have Valley Flood Caller out, so you can cast a creature tutor and you get a Cloud of Fairies and you untap your Gaia's Cradle and you go again. Or whatever,
Yeah,
everything
I
that you
found
find.
Spellseeker for Emerald Charm, but that still makes me 5 extra mana.
Right.
I still net 5 because of that.
Yeah, I see that a lot. And then if you hit this, you go, oh fuck, this is nothing now, right? That sucks. But yeah, card is interesting. It's definitely a thinker for sure.
Yeah, definitely a thinker for sure. And that's all that I have to say about it. Nice.
You got another card on our list of things to talk about?
I do have another card. Dylan, would you play this card in Rogsai?
Nope. I'm only playing the cards that are good enough right now. I've looked at all of them in existence, all 30,000. If I would play them, I am playing them.
No, you haven't looked at this card. You've never seen this.
All right, I could be wrong. I'm always wrong.
I just had a scenario where instead of copy pasting, I moved a lot of text
Nightmare.
around. and-
Undo. Control Z. You know that one? Control Z?
Can you Control Z on an iPad?
I think so, if it's got a keyboard.
How do you hit 2 buttons at the same time on an iPad?
What did you say?
How do you hit 2 buttons at the same time on an iPad?
You have 2 fingers, right?
It's fine. I got the card. It's okay. Don't worry about it. All right. Our next card is Necrologia. Necrologia?
Oh, this card sucks.
Oh, you do know this card. Okay.
It's Adnos in the end step, right?
No, it's Necropotence at the end step.
Okay, sure.
Actually, now it's just Necrodominance. It's an
Okay.
instant speed Necrodominance.
Yeah. What does it say and do?
3 and 2 black for an instant that says cast it only during your end step, and as an additional cost, you pay X life. And then, if it resolves, you get to draw X cards.
You pay X life as part of the cost.
As part of the cost,
Oof.
yeah. So it's not even like Necrodominance where you get to see if it resolves before you have to pay it.
This card, I get it. I get why someone would think that this card is good. I do understand. It is not good. It is way too restrictive on when you can cast it. It is way too risky because if it gets countered, you've paid the life and you've gotten nowhere. All of the other ones that I play, ad nauseum, you pay the life as it resolves. You can do it whenever, someone else's turn, on your turn, whatever. Even Necrodominance, it triggers, and then once the trigger resolves, then you pay the life. So you don't like pay the life, then someone flashes in Bowmaster. The trigger goes on the stack, they flash in Bowmaster, you have that information, you pay a life accordingly after that. I would play Bolus of Citadel and Peer into the Abyss way before this, and I don't play either of those. That's my personal thought. I could be wrong. And this, in the right deck, maybe. Who knows? You know what I mean?
No, I think you've already said enough reasons why you probably shouldn't play this card.
If you were playing black-white and you had a ton of silence effects, this gets better. If no one can counter your thing, then this is straight up ad nauseum.
But then you have to be able to win at instant speed, though, is the problem.
And you don't have Final Fortune or Born Upon the Win if you're just in black-white. So maybe if you're playing Blue Farm, but you're playing Blue Farm, why the hell would you go this deep?
Why would you go this deep?
So like this is, to me, this is like, if this is probably a cheap card. If you're playing budget cEDH, maybe this
would be a fun
if
way to
that's
do
something,
that. Yeah,
maybe this. But again, like I would say Necropotence is the best one by a billion miles. Ad nauseum is actually only a couple billion miles behind Necropotence. It's very close.
Yeah.
Then there's Necrodominance. Then there's Bolus of Citadel. Then there's Peer into the Abyss. Then there's probably other stuff. Realistically, like Rhystic Study. You know what I mean? But like if you're looking for specifically pay life, draw cards, those 5 cards are all better than this one. And there might even be another one that I'm not thinking of that's better too.
Obnixilis is getting more popular now, and all of those other cards, except for Peer into the Abyss, have situations where they can trigger Obnixilis.
That's true.
This won't unless you X equals 1.
I had a game in a tournament, in our tournament that I won, where there was an Obnixilis out, and I had a Necropotence. I think I talked about this.
Or an ad nauseum.
It was an ad nauseum, actually. So it wasn't actually Necropotence, and I gave them a whole bunch of cards, and it didn't matter at all. But I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, what you're saying, too.
A strong, well-built deck with a good pilot doesn't care about what Obnixilis is going to reveal. It just doesn't matter. You've drawn all those cards, too.
I just saw this card on Reddit and thought it would be fun to talk about.
No, yeah, it is cool, and I have thought about it. Yeah, I certainly have, but I just think there's too many other things that are better. Maybe if Necro and Adnaz and Necrodominance and Bolus of Citadel gets banned, and it's like just this and Peer into the Abyss, yeah, okay, sure. I would consider it, but a lot of things have to change.
All right. Well, then let's talk about card number 5 on our list today.
5-0. Is this 5 of 5?
5 of 5.
Or do we have more cards?
No, this is 5 of 5.
5 of 5. Okay, cool. I think I have a couple of juts out of this card that I want to reference because I think I remember what this one is.
All right, let's talk about Sudden Substitution.
Yeah.
This is 2 and 2 blue for an instant with split second.
Already, I don't, like, historically, don't love it, but I'm going to change my opinion very soon.
This says exchange control of target non-creature spell and target creature. Then the spell's controller may choose new targets for it.
So this is a very confusing one. I've seen this come up a lot in Rog Ishai over the past few months. You have a Rhystic Study, I have a Rograk. What if we swap them? Yours Rhystic Study's on the stack, I'm going to have that Rhystic Study, you can have my dinky little Rograk, whatever.
What if I have that Ad Nauseam that you're trying to cast really early in the game?
What if I have that Necropotence? What if there's so many good non-creature spells, right? What if I have that Silence? You have a Silence. Oh, all right, I have a Silence now, and you can have my fucking Rograk.
You're not winning this turn at all.
Historically, I haven't loved split-second spells. The extra mana felt like it wasn't worth it to me because you were spending too much mana on the effect, and a lot of good turbo decks, it doesn't matter what you interact with. You're not going to be able to cast your 4-mana thing because I'm going before you have the mana too. And that's not exactly always what this is good for. Realistically, this card is much better from how I've seen it play in sloppy shit. Not against turbo. It's not really great against turbo. Yeah, you could take an Ad Nauseam. Oftentimes, they're going to have enough mana before you have access to this. But on turn 3, on turn 4, on turn 5, once they're casting, the late game Smothering Tide, the late game Rhystic Study, then this becomes really interesting, especially with win conditions, because they're split second. They can't fucking respond, and there's so many things that, like, they think they're safe because they have Hexy Squelcher, or they have Deflecting Swat and Fierce Guardianship and Misdirection in their hand. Nah, none of that matters. You gain control of the Rhystic Study right away. You just have it. it. That's what it is.
Exactly. So now they kind of have to 2-for-1 themselves if they don't want that spell to resolve for you. So it kind of forces them to use their other interaction on their own spell now.
The upside of this card is crazy, especially and specifically in slop decks. I don't think that you can throw cards like this and even split second cards, because how split second cards have been used in the past of just like you slot it into a deck. Angel's Grace goes into a Naya deck because you have no way to interact with Thassa's Oracle and you throw it in there. I still think that's bad. Where split second cards are really good is in these slop decks that their whole goal is to just not lose. They just want to not lose and they need to not lose. And Angel's Grace is really good at allowing that. The things that I wanted to talk about were other split second cards, and Angel's Grace in particular is really good at saying you will not lose the game. And I think that's really good in a deck that can capitalize on the extra turn that it's given, that extra time. Slop decks can really capitalize on that. Whereas like your Naya deck, you can't. You know what I mean? If you're leaving up mana to try to stop a Thoracle deck, you haven't advanced your board state and you haven't really gained anything because you have Naya cards in play and it's your turn. It looks the same. Whereas like the slop decks, another turn cycle goes around. That means my Rhystic Study and my Smothering Tithe triggered 14 fucking times. It's a different time by the time it gets back to me.
And the Naya deck, all they're going to be able to do with that extra time is try to win the game. So they go, well, now I have to win on this turn, and if I can't, we're just going to go back to the original player who was trying to win, and then they're going to win. Whereas like the slop decks don't need to win the game after they untap. They just needed the extra mana and a couple of other triggers on their card draw engine so that way they have more opportunities to stay alive before they're able to put a win together then.
Right, and especially with the addition of Gleaming Splendor, now that these like Splendor, is that what it's
you
called?
You said that very
Splendor.
like this is the Splendor.
Splendor? Are you supposed to say Splendor?
Splendor made it sound more like a character name.
Yeah. I wish it was an actual legendary creature so I could put it in Sisei and it would be good there, but it's still going to be good in Sisei.
Could you imagine if it was a legendary enchantment?
Oh
so, like,
my
even
God.
that would be great.
It would be insane. But with the addition of Gleaming Splendor, now with these company of Gleaming Splendor along with Smothering Tithe and a second Smothering Tithe, that being a win, there's so many other ways to like turn these like grindy board states into a win if you're given the space, rather than just turning them into a potential draw or like slopping it up and gaining a ton of value. Oftentimes your engines are win conditions. So if you get the time and you can untap the mana, you will be able to win the game.
And they're engines that every deck is playing in cEDH too. So if you find a sudden substitution instead of your copy enchantment, all you need to do is just wait for someone else to cast their Smothering Tithe, and now you have your Smothering Tithe, their Smothering Tithe, and you go, oh, my Fairy Mastermind's here now.
Yeah, and in these decks where you're making all this extra Smothering Tithe mana, that 4 mana becomes a lot more inconsequential on turn 3 and turn 4. You have to survive, like I said, like you have to be alive and be able to do that, but oftentimes these very sloppy decks, kind of turn 4, they have so much mana. It's okay, they can spend the extra mana on a spell like this when it's so lights out if it resolves.
And if there's one other slop deck at the table, it gets way easier for these decks to survive until turn 3 and turn 4 and turn 5, because if you only have to stop one player, 3 of you can come together to do that very easily and then go, well, let's just like fuck around for 3 hours now.
Right, exactly. And the split second spells are what allows you to like break through this shit. Oh, you're casting a Born Upon the Wind because you're trying to be greedy here. Swap. I have the Born Upon the Wind now. Split second and now I'm going to be able to go over the top of everything that you have. And because you have a split second spell, you have the ability to wait. I've talked about this with like why silence is good. Oh, I can't do anything about this. I have no counterspell in my hand. I pass a turn, but you have the silence. You have the thing that like shuts it all down. If you have the split second spell, your opponents can freak out. We got to counter the Born Upon the Wind. I got to look for a counter. I'll Vampiric Tutor for a Mind Break Chat for the Born Upon the Wind.
And you say, I don't have a counter in my hand.
And that's true. And then the stack goes to resolve and you're like, okay, with that last counter spell on the thing or whatever, I'm going to gain control of whatever I need to and be able to win the game over top of everything or something like that.
Yeah, or like even with Angel's Grace, you can go, well, everyone else got all their interaction out of their hand. Angel's Grace, when no one could respond to that, well, I made sure that we didn't win. I'm going to untap and now put a bunch of stuff that is very scary on the stack that I know you don't have the extra interaction for because you had to waste it all when I just saved the day no matter what.
I have found that oftentimes you can stop the win, but with a lot of win conditions on your upkeep, they can just like restart whatever the loop was and still kill you over top or whatever. Whereas these slop decks, they have so many abilities to go at instant speed. So even when it gets back to their turn, yeah, you could try your loop again, but now I've untapped. I have all my mana, so I can start my loop several times over top of your final thing. It's like a much different thing than in the past where like the Naya deck, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you Goblin Bombarded me again in my upkeep and then I'm still dying.
Yeah, if you're just like teching for against Thassa's Oracle, that's not good. You should have tried to win before they Thassa's Oracle. If you're just lose the Thassa's Oracle. That's the only way to stop that. Whereas, like, it's kind of nice because in the situation where we're talking about where you can just hold on to your split-second spell until the last moment, sometimes you don't even need to use your split-second spell because your other opponents have enough interaction to stop the win. So that just means that you'll always have this piece in your hand, which now, okay, with sudden substitution, I have to be holding up 4 mana at every single junction.
And have a creature in play. But if you're playing Rog Ishai or if you're playing any of these engine decks,
even Kinnan, like, has a lot of creatures that, like,
Elves, that's fine.
Llanowar Elves is okay. My Endurance already got its value.
Right.
I'm fine giving that away because it's just an in-play creature now. I really like this card. I think that it is, again, only going to be good in slop metagames, but if you can fit it into your Thrasios deck or your Kinnan deck or something like that, I think this is going to do you a lot of good.
Yeah, and I just, like, real quick on other split-second cards, Wipe Away. It bounces a permanent at split-second. Bounces a Gaia's Cradle. That was your land drop for turn. Gaia's Cradle's up. You can't do anything anymore. Bounces your Underworld Breach. Yes, like, you could replay the Underworld Breach, but, like, a lot of the times the line might be way too short or whatever for the Underworld Breach. And specifically, the split-second is good when the table is talking. If everyone's politicking and everyone's communicating, oftentimes there will be situations, well, don't get rid of my Orcish Bowmaster. I have a deflecting swat. It's not going to work. I go, all right, yeah, that does suck. Blah, blah, blah. Wait. I'm going to wipe away your Orcish Bowmaster. You can't respond, and now you're tapped out on mana, and it's just going to be gone now. And now I can get away with my card draw thing.
I do like Wipe Away. I think I like it less than these other two split-second spells that we talked about.
It's probably worse.
Because there's just a little bit more utility that you can get out of them, whereas, like, this is going to stop someone from probably winning the game that turn, but Angel's Grace will do that in 100% of scenarios, whereas this does that in a little bit fewer scenarios.
Right, yeah. I particularly like it if you're going through these loops the slop decks do where you're forcing draws a bunch. If you're doing Fairy Mastermind shit, I really don't want you, the Smothering Tithe player, to have your Smothering Tithe while I'm doing this. I'm going to wipe it away, bounce it, you don't have flash speed right now, and then I'm going to go through my loop, and now you don't make treasures. So now when I force everyone to draw, there's no way for you to try to go over top with all the mana that you're making anymore.
Yeah, it kind of guarantees the win in that case. So instead of, like, giving the table the out that they can hope for because it has a 0.1% chance of happening, now you just go, nope, you don't have to worry about that because I've already gathered so much that this 3 mana for Wipe Away is not going to matter.
Exactly, yeah, because you have the Smothering Tithe thing and you're making 15 treasures or whatever. So yeah, it's not the best one, but all of these, and like Trickbind, I'm still less confident on Trickbind, but like it does stop some crazy stuff. I realized the other day, Trickbind stops Ral. If you Trickbind the trigger, the coin flipping trigger, when it turns into a Planeswalker, it doesn't exile and come back. It's the same permanent. It just transforms.
So it still can't plus up or
so
minus?
So it can't activate its Planeswalker ability if you flip it over.
That's funny.
How often is that going to come up? I don't know, but I just thought, I saw that recently. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It does that.
It's
that's
not
crazy.
that, like, maybe that might not come up very much, but if you're the Trickbind player, there's a million situations where stuff like that can happen. So, like, as the format moves a little bit closer to, I'm trying to win with Sisay activations and not actually put spells on the stack, Trickbind in particular, I think gets a little bit better than Stifle and some of this other stuff. However, I don't know that I'm in love with it yet, but I like Trickbind now more than I ever have before.
It's big on the last minute shit because like the way to stop Ral is to stop the Desperate Ritual. That's how you stop Ral in the beginning of their combo. Yeah. So you can tell the table that we got to stop the mana. Before they make the mana, I don't have anything that stops the mana. We got to stop the mana.
And then Ral responds with a couple other things in response to the counter spell that tried to stop the mana.
Yeah, so now your opponent uses their interaction on the Desperate Ritual and Ral responds, and then you know with split second, Ral's not doing their thing this turn. I know that for sure. I can be confident. And then on the last trigger, I'll Trickbind that, and now your Ral turn is shut off, and everyone else wasted their interaction, and now we get to me, and my Smothering Tithe resolves, and I'm in a good spot, or whatever the situation is. So, like, yeah, I'm a bit more high on split-second spells recently than I have been in the past, like we said before, specifically in these slop decks.
In the slop decks in particular, yeah. Great. Well, those are the 5 cards that we wanted to talk about today. So we're going to move on to our final topic of the day, which is a question from our patron, Not Kareth.
Not Kareth. What did Not Kareth say?
Not Kareth says, are there any commanders or strategies that you all think are significantly stronger in tEDH rather than cEDH pods and then vice versa? And just to be clear, cEDH, as we know, stands for competitive EDH, but tEDH is specifically tournament EDH, right, which is technically a little bit of a smaller metagame than cEDH. Whereas we like to say any deck can be cEDH. It's really like the top 10 to 15 decks of cEDH that are tEDH because they're the strongest. They will do the best in a tournament setting.
Yeah, I think the main difference between tEDH and cEDH is tEDH's decks are designed to win within the time of a round. Rounds are 80 minutes. I have to be able to put a win together in 80 minutes or get to a draw if a win's no longer possible for me. They have to put that into their mind. Whereas like for cEDH, you could play like hard stacks and know the only way I win the game is if the game goes 3 hours and I win after 3 hours. In tEDH, that strategy sucks because you have to win the game in an allotted amount of time. That's the main difference, I think. And also the difference of like, I'm planning to do X in Swiss, and then once we get to top 16, I have a little bit of a different strategy or something like that. You're thinking about the differences, which is the round time specifically, and then the ability to fight for a draw if you need to or whatever,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. So cards like Heartwood Storyteller are probably way more played in tEDH, and if you're playing a cEDH game, you might want to swap that card out of your deck.
I think a big example of this is like Rog Ishai. That deck is designed to be a menace in tournaments. That's what it's good for. But in like regular cEDH pods, if there are 3 decks at the table that are all like tier 2.5 decks or whatever that are just like whatever cEDH decks that you don't often see at the top tables, Rog Ishai might have a harder time against those decks.
The counterspell suite that they're playing is like specifically designed for the tEDH meta. The clones that they play are anticipation of other decks they're going to see. And if you have to rely on your copy enchantment and steal enchantment, you know, only working on your stuff, well, first of all, steal enchantment does not work against like Thranduil most of the time if you're up against that. That's, I think, another thing is, like you were saying, you're going to see a lot of different kinds of decks in cEDH. So if you're built, I would say just kind of any slop deck in general, the entire slop strategy is just way worse. If you're trying to rely on your politics much more, I think people are a little bit less inclined to listen to you in a cEDH game because they're just trying to win and do their own thing and just need to like make sure that they can progress and not die at the same time versus like, you know, make the play that helps set the Rog Ishai player ahead instead.
Right, yeah. Like I feel like in cEDH, you would never spite play. That's just like against what cEDH is. But in tEDH, I would absolutely threaten a spite play if it means that I could potentially get a draw or even better, a win. If I threaten that, hey, I'm just going to fucking kill myself or whatever.
Right, yeah. Passive
Right,
negation,
yeah.
I think, is like kind of the perfect example of this. In a casual game of cEDH, I'm never going to say, do you want to draw? Here's my passive negation that I can't.
We're going for a win. If you got the shit and I have only passive negation, I'm just going to say, okay, I lose this game in cEDH.
Yeah,
that's
I don't
want
to interact with anything else because I'm going to be king making. Whereas, like you're saying, I want to be looking for opportunities where I can threaten a king making scenario so that someone doesn't win the game instead, and we can like make this game go longer by continuing to politic or just like force it into a draw at some point.
Right, yeah, exactly. Can you go over again what the actual question was? Because I was going off on the differences between. I don't know if we actually answered the question yet, or if there was more to it.
We started to answer the question a little bit, which is, are there any strategies that are significantly stronger in tEDH and cEDH? And we said already that slop is just better in tEDH. My other thought that I had is that I think your pet deck is better in cEDH than it is in tEDH in general. And this kind of goes for basically any tier 2, tier 2.5, tier 3 decks. I feel like I'm learning that I separate the tiers into much smaller categories than a lot of other people.
Okay, yeah.
So for me, it's just like anything that's kind of outside of like the top 15 decks in cEDH right now. The top 15 decks in tEDH, I should say, to be more clear. Anything outside of that, I think does way better in cEDH. That's probably going to be like a very obvious statement, but I think part of that is because if you bring those decks into a tEDH pod, on average, the skill level of those players in tEDH, especially the farther into tEDH tournaments that you go, they're better players. They're more skilled. So they are a little bit more familiar with all of the combos in the format. And even though they're like paying a little bit more attention to the tEDH metagame, they're still going to be aware of how this other deck works because they're cEDH players at heart. They play cEDH for fun and might have built that deck already, right? So you still have a little bit of like the competitive edge of your opponents not knowing what you're doing because, you know, decks still win tournaments like that, of course, but it's less likely to happen in tEDH because everyone knows what Magda does. We've played against Magda 50 times in the 50 tournaments that we played against. Whereas like if you play in a LGS full of randoms, they might not have seen Magda in cEDH before and not be as aware of what you're doing.
Yeah, I would also say that turbo decks are probably better in cEDH than they are in tEDH because of the heavy existence of slop and the desire to force draws when you can no longer win the game.
Which is how the meta is right now.
Which is how the meta is right now. Not saying that turbo decks can't win in the slot meta and in tEDH. They absolutely can. Roxai is still one of the best decks in tournament cEDH.
Going faster than slop is still a great way to beat it, yeah.
Right, but in like casual cEDH, I think Roxai is like by a billion miles the best deck. If you're like the fastest shit possible. If you get out of the very highest top tier of cEDH, a lot of those decks just don't have the tools and resources to stop Rockside consistently. So that's also a little bit of a difference. But
because
like,
they're trying to do like a more fun thing, like Toph, the first Metal Bender. Most of the time, unless you have like a turn 1 Vexing Bobble, you're not really going to be able to do too much until you start fucking up your deck to play more cards that will interact with like your turbo player at your local meta.
right, yeah. So yeah, I think that would be the big difference. And that's two sides of the same coin, right? Like Slop's better in tEDH, which makes Turbo better in cEDH. That would be the big difference. Overall, we said a lot of things there. There's not that much of a difference. It's still the same bracket. It's still the same idea.
And if you go to like play cEDH with your friends casually, there's a great chance they're still going to be playing one of the top 10 to 15 tEDH decks instead of just like a pet brew that they've been working on, because it's more fun to play that in your mindset maybe.
Most like decks would have only like minor differences, you know what I mean, between their tEDH and the cEDH, besides like the very slop things, but like copy enchantment and shit like that. You're probably not playing that in your cEDH deck, but in your tEDH version, a Rockside list, yeah, you might put in a copy enchantment in there because you got to keep up with the sloppy decks.
Yeah,
or
if you're anticipating certain decks, if you're anticipating more Orcish Bowmaster or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I think we answered the question, right?
Yeah, that's really what it is. Slop's better in tEDH, and pet decks and Turbo is better in cEDH.
Yeah, I feel like I have to add this caveat whenever we talk about caviar. I feel like I have to add
you have
this.
to talk about these fish eggs.
The most important thing is that you're a good player and can talk. That's what will win you more games in cEDH than whatever deck you play, whatever cards you play. All that stuff is like third important almost always. You understanding your decks and understanding your opponent's decks and when it's right to do what and how to sequence your shit and when to find a line and how to talk your opponents out of doing stuff. That's the way to win games of cEDH. And then like picking the right cards and stuff, that's like a small part of it as well.
It'll help. So that's why we talked about these 5 cards today too.
I think that we said a bunch of stuff.
I think we're all good. I think we're okay to wrap this up.
Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so on Patreon, like our $100 patrons.
Mock, Satan, Malicious Bane, Zaus, Apex of War, Handedly, The Asian Sage, Mac the Mad, Seabass, Not Careth, Bob the Skull, E, Davishire, Abyss A, Peggy, E4 cards and more red. Pack Fresh Proxies, Red Entomb, Finks MTG, Wandering Around, Nethresmian, Mike H, Korth Sean, Tom Bieber, Oxnix, TKS69, Nathan Cohen, Josh Legat, Mr. Jerby, Okitoad, Penguin Man 0089, David Newman, Johnny Denver Omelet, Rocky Hall, Pat Fires, Wilco, Spengler, Larceny Roars, Porky B, S.C. Phillip, Only Groupie, Zach Hartley, Reactive, Sean of the Ice, The Works, 472, Garrett Garrett, Miss the Ace, Luke Hook, Connor Sipon, Joshua Day, Demon of Raspberries, Peter Stewart, Uncle Butts, Duke Luke Kwaja, A. Hamid, Scott Hawk, and Baby G-Bus.
If you want to pick up any of our merch, you can do that at playtowinmtg.com.
Thank you, Dragon Shield, for supporting the show. Use code PLAYTOWIN5 at the affiliate link down below for 5% off.
You can follow us on the internet for more content.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time. The $50 patrons.
David, Lumi, Devin Morrow, Carpet Angel, Turtle99, Meta, Ben Finelli, Sarcastic, Mystic Muffin Man, Zachary Coulson, Dalton Poteet, Jan Wildfang, Thomas Pueno, and David Nelson.